She's my baby.
No. I'm going to fight as hard as I can to get justice for her and for her children, and I'm not going to stop.
The door by himself and saw his mom not breathing with a bag.
I knew that April was unhappy. I knew that she requested a divorce 2 weeks prior, and then she was dead 2 weeks later.
April Holt had just turned 29. She had 2 kids who adored her, a business she built from nothing, and 2 weeks earlier, she'd finally filed the divorce papers she meant to follow through on this time. She told her mother she was done for good. Then, on July 28th, in 2023, she went into the bathroom with her husband to talk. Her son heard them arguing through the door. He never heard his mother's voice again. Police ruled it a suicide within days and closed the case. Her mother, Jaime, knew her daughter. She knew April would never leave her children like that. So she did something the investigators wouldn't do. She kept looking. What she found didn't just prove her right. It proved exactly who to blame. April Lynn Holt was based just outside Nashville in Antioch, Tennessee. She ran her own lash business, built from the ground up after she left a regular job to work for herself. Online, she'd grown a following of over 200,000 people on TikTok, where she talked about faith, growth, and staying positive through hard days. She wasn't polished about it. She showed the bad days too, and people responded to that honesty. She had 2 children, Serenity, 11, whom April had at 17 and raised with her own mother's help early on, and Denzel, 7, her son with her husband, Donovan Holt. April and Donovan had history that went back to 2013 when she was 19. It took 2 years before anything romantic happened between them. By 2015, they were together. Denzel was born that October. They married in 2020. On camera, they were the couple people rooted for. Best friends first, they always said, and that was supposedly the foundation that held the relationship together. Off camera, it wasn't that simple. They separated for almost 3 years at one point. There were money problems, health problems, depression. And through all of it, they kept posting like nothing was wrong. In late 2020, they announced the marriage was ending. No hard feelings, still best friends, still going to see each other most days. It sounded almost rehearsed. Before the year was out, they were back together. Whatever had pulled them apart the first time, it hadn't gone anywhere. It just went quiet. By July 2023, April had stopped pretending. She celebrated her 29th birthday, talking about purpose, about becoming the woman she was meant to be. 2 weeks later, she filed for divorce again. This time, she told Jaime, it was real. She wasn't backing down. Donovan seemed just as certain about something. A week before April died, he pawned his wedding ring. On the morning of July 28th, April went through her normal routine: coffee, journaling, a quiet start to the day. She hugged Denzel, kissed him goodbye, and went into the bathroom with Donovan. That's when the argument started. Denzel put his ear to the door. He could hear his parents fighting, but not what they were saying. He looked underneath and saw both their feet. Then he gave up trying to listen and went to his room. A few minutes later, Donovan came in alone. He got Denzel dressed, made him something to eat, and once his son had finished, he asked him to go check on his mom. Denzel opened the bathroom door and found his mother unresponsive, a plastic bag taped over her head. Donovan called 911. April was rushed to the hospital and placed on life support. Jaime arrived to find her son-in-law behaving strangely, rocking, pacing, holding his head in his hands, but not asking questions, not demanding answers, not doing any of the things a husband usually does when his wife is dying in front of him. It would be over 6 hours before anyone told the family about the bag. In that window, Donovan went back to the apartment. Twice. Nobody could say why. On July 31st, 2023, April Holt was pronounced dead. She was 29 years old. Metro Nashville police had already made up their minds. They'd been to the scene, seen no signs of a struggle, and concluded there was nothing to investigate. Weeks later, the medical examiner listed the cause of death as suffocation. No foul play. Case closed. Jaime didn't accept it. She'd seen the bruising on her daughter's neck, her wrists, her ankles. She'd seen the gash on her inner thigh. None of it had made it into the official conclusion, and when she raised it, investigators told her they didn't see enough evidence of trauma. They told her the case was closed, there was nothing further to look into. Jaime got up, walked out of the room, and told them she wasn't done. She had no idea yet how right that decision would turn out to be. Jaime didn't have a badge or a case file. What she had was certainty, and she used it. She started reaching out to local news stations. Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7. She contacted celebrities, hoping someone with a bigger platform would help her get attention. Nobody responded. Not one outlet in Nashville would touch April's story. As far as the media was concerned, this was a closed case about a young mother who'd taken her own life. There was nothing left to report, so Jaime went around them. She filed a formal complaint with Nashville's Community Review Board, forcing a look at how police had handled the investigation in the first place. It worked to a point. Nearly a year after April's death, the Metro Nashville Police Department reopened the case. 4 months after that, they handed back a 47-page report. The findings didn't change anything. The manner of death stayed the same on paper. But the report gave Jaime something she hadn't had before: details, documentation, a paper trail, and she read every page of it. While she worked through the report, she was also raising her grandchildren. Serenity and Denzel were living with her, going to grief counseling, having nightmares that kept the whole house up. Jaime wrote about her own grief too, eventually publishing a book about it. She became an advocate for domestic violence awareness, telling anyone who'd listen that abuse doesn't always look like what people expect. Then Donovan moved to Texas, and he wanted Denzel with him. Custody had defaulted to him after April died. He was still, on paper, just a grieving husband. Denzel didn't want to go. He begged his grandmother to let him stay. Jaime says she never tried to influence how he felt about his father. She didn't need to. Now she was fighting 2 battles at once, trying to keep her grandson and trying to get someone, anyone, to take her seriously about how April actually died. Buried in that 47-page report was the detail everyone else had missed or ignored. Forensic testing had picked up fingerprints on the plastic bag taped over April's head and on the duct tape holding it in place. 1 set, just one. They didn't belong to April. They belonged to Donovan. Investigators had this information for months. It sat in the file while the case stayed closed, while Jaime got told over and over that there wasn't enough evidence. There was. Somebody just hadn't bothered to look at it properly the first time. In April 2024, Jaime went quiet online. Donovan had gone to an attorney and gotten a gag order placed against her. She couldn't post about the case anymore, not directly. So she found a workaround. She posted a photo of herself with tape over her mouth. No explanation needed. Everyone who'd been following already understood. Donovan, it turned out, had good reason to be nervous. In September 2024, Jaime called him. FaceTime. No warning, no lawyers, just his former mother-in-law on the other end of the line, telling him she knew what he'd done and that she was meeting with the cold case unit the following Thursday, whether he talked to her or not. He talked. Right there on a call Jaime happened to be recording, Donovan told her the truth. The argument in the bathroom had turned physical. He'd strangled her, and instead of calling for help, he staged the rest, dragged her into the shower, taped the bag over her head to make it look self-inflicted, then walked out and made his son breakfast like it was any other morning. Jaime says she wasn't shocked. She'd suspected it for a year. Hearing him say it out loud didn't feel like a revelation. It felt like confirmation. She took the recording straight to police. The case was reopened immediately, and this time nobody was calling it a suicide. April's autopsy was revised. Cause of death changed from suffocation to strangulation. Manner of death changed from undetermined to homicide. On September 20th, 2024, Donovan Holt was arrested in San Antonio after confessing again, this time directly to detectives. He was indicted on charges of reckless homicide, evidence tampering, and false reporting. He was extradited back to Tennessee and held on a $75,000 bond. awaiting arraignment. 14 months. That's how long it took Jaime Dickerson to get police to look at evidence that had been sitting in their own file the entire time. 14 months of being told there wasn't enough, of being turned away, of doing the work herself because nobody else would. She'd gotten her confession. Now she wanted something the system hadn't been in a hurry to give her: real accountability. Jaime wanted first-degree murder. What she got was a negotiation. Prosecutors told her that taking the case to trial carried its own risk, that Donovan could end up with less time, not more, and could potentially walk away with the felony wiped from his record entirely. So Jaime agreed to a plea deal, though agreed might be generous. She's described it less as a choice and more as a decision she was backed into. In February 2025, Donovan Holt pleaded guilty to reckless homicide, evidence tampering, and false reporting. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison, followed by 8 years of community corrections, not 8 years behind bars, 8 years of supervised release after 2. A man who strangled his wife, staged her death to look like a suicide, and let the case sit closed for over a year would be back on the streets in 2. Jaime called it insulting. It's hard to argue with her. Part of her reasoning for taking the deal wasn't really about Donovan at all. It was about Denzel. A trial meant more time, more uncertainty, more of her grandson's childhood spent in limbo while the case dragged on. Jaime wanted him settled, and settled meant keeping him with her for good. So she made the trade. She hasn't stopped pushing since. Jaime has continued campaigning to get the charges increased, arguing there's no reason the case should have stayed at reckless homicide instead of first-degree murder, and no reason child endangerment was never added, given that a 7-year-old was the one sent in to find his mother's body. She's been assigned a 3rd district attorney at this point and says she'll keep pressing every one of them until something changes. What actually happened to April still comes back to one image, more than any court document. A husband who strangled his wife during an argument, and instead of calling for help, spent his time staging a cover-up good enough to fool the police, but not good enough to survive a mother who refused to stop asking questions. He went back to the apartment twice while his wife lay dying, for reasons he's never explained. He made his son breakfast, then he sent that same son to go find her. If Donovan had a plan for what came after, it was a bad one. He counted on a closed case staying closed. He counted on nobody looking too closely at a bag and some tape. He didn't count on Jaime Dickerson. April's case wasn't solved by advanced forensics or a break in the investigation. It was solved by a mother who refused to accept no signs of trauma when she'd seen the bruises herself, who kept requesting documents nobody wanted to hand over, and who eventually got a killer to confess to her, over the phone, in his own words. Police had the fingerprint evidence in their file for months before Jaime found it herself. Buried in 47 pages, nobody had thought worth flagging. Serenity and Denzel are with Jaime now. She says some days are better than others, which is probably the most honest way to describe grief that doesn't come with an ending. She's published on her own experience of loss and continues to speak about domestic violence, telling people that abuse rarely looks the way you'd expect it to, that some of it hides in plain sight, dressed up as a happy marriage, posted online for 200,000 followers to see. April Holt spent years telling people to keep going, to manifest something better, to believe that hard seasons don't last. She had no way of knowing that the fight she'd end up needing wouldn't be hers to finish. It would be her mother's. That was the story of April Lynn Holt. Thank you for watching. Fair use notice. This video is for educational and commentary purposes only. All footage and images used fall under fair use guidelines as protected under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act. If you enjoy true crime content, make sure to subscribe to Love to Death channel for more shocking cases, in-depth investigations, and updates on stories like this one. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.
From my mama's heart, I just knew that she didn't do this to herself.
Tonight in Operation Crime and Justice, the instincts of a mid-state mother leads to a murder confession in a case Metro Police initially considered a suicide. Good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Couch. Megan is off tonight. Well, it is not often when police reverse course like this and go from suicide to murder, but that's what happened in this case. Fox 17 News' Karen Aguilar live at Metro Police headquarters to explain how the confession secured by this grieving mother actually helped police get one of their own.
The mom tells me even though her daughter's death was first ruled a suicide, she found through this lengthy cold case file what she needed to get her son-in-law to confess he killed her. April Holt, a young mother and wife of Donovan, was found almost lifeless in this apartment complex on Cane Ridge Parkway with a plastic bag taped tightly around her neck. She later died at Southern Hills Hospital. Holt's mother, Jamie Dickerson, was torn apart.
I would do anything to have her back. Anything. She's my baby.
Nothing could bring her daughter back, but Dickerson could bring her daughter justice.
What led you to believe that Donovan killed April and it wasn't a suicide?
I knew that April was unhappy. I knew that she requested a divorce 2 weeks prior, and then she was dead 2 weeks later.
Dickerson spent months doing her own investigation after she says police refused to believe her.
This is the first autopsy stating that she had put the bag over her head and that it was suicide.
The key piece of evidence is this. Only Donovan Holt's fingerprints were found on the bag and tape.
That is when I confronted him and he confessed to me. And so that is when I went to the police.
Metro detectives questioned the husband and got a confession. Holt was arrested in Texas last week. He's charged with reckless homicide, false reporting, and tampering with evidence. The autopsy report has been amended to reflect the cause of death as homicide instead of suicide.
I feel like they've failed my family. I have had to fight at the same time as grieve my daughter.
Although Holt was charged with reckless homicide, Dickerson wants it to be upped to a higher charge. Reporting live in Nashville, Karen Aguilar, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.